that the sheriff went and evicted these people, but that night they're back, and their friends are crashing there. And how do we stop these kind of things?
Continue doing what you're doing. You contact law enforcement. Sometimes if they get their roots in there and establish tenancy, we do have to go through the eviction process. Once that eviction process is complete, if they're coming back and returning the next day, they can be arrested for trespassing. Call your law enforcement and get a deputy sheriff up here to handle that. Yes?
As far as I know, we have been calling the law enforcement. We've been calling the sheriffs and the deputy sheriffs, and there hasn't been a lot of follow-up. I had some property stolen out of my car in front of my house, a laptop, and included was also taking my baby's clothes. And through going around, like you're saying, up and down the streets, talking to the neighborhood, I met a lot of amazing people, a lot of neighbors that I've made good connections with, and they pretty much helped me pinpoint it. I put the pieces together. I conducted my own investigation, knocked on some doors, asked questions, kind of bluffed a little bit, because I knew I didn't have enough evidence for the police to actually take action. But I bluffed just enough. I had just enough information that when I returned the following day from being gone overnight, my stuff was returned on my doorstep. Now, the thing is that what gave it away was that my baby's clothes were taken. And so that pointed, and some of my clothes, so that pointed me to somebody who was similar in my size and also had a small child. So another concern that I have is, even though that my stuff has been stolen, one concern I have is there's many people in the neighborhood who haven't had their stuff returned. And the other major concern that I have is that there's a child that's in danger, that maybe Child Protective Services needs to be contacted. And maybe that will be quicker action than what the sheriffs are able to do.
The child that's in danger belonging to the person who did this?
Yes, because the thing is after my stuff was stolen, the following night, I got my dog living with me again. And my dog woke me 1:45 in the morning. And I went out on my balcony and I saw somebody walking on the street. I saw him shine a flashlight, and after they passed by my house, I heard a small child fuss and then be quieted again. And that was really, really strong as far as being able to find my personal belongings. But, you know, a lot of it could be considered neighborhood rumors, but we have a pretty good idea of who's doing this. One of the people that are involved in doing this, and that they might be associated with this other individual juvenile. I don't want to say juvenile because they're over 18, but that there's a small child that possibly is being taken along on burglaries and at hours in the night that they shouldn't be out.
As far as calling child welfare services, what you've described me probably is not enough to get a response out of child welfare services. If there's any reports to child welfare services and to law enforcement, to the extent it can be confidential, we keep that confidential. Your reports to child welfare services could be kept confidential. As far as the response or lack of response from the sheriff's department, I'm not in a position right now where I can address that.
Yeah, perfect. Because I wanted to ask the person here who said that they've contacted the property to find out that they're squatting. This individual and this child is being at this house. I also heard that there's no running water going to this house. Now,
that would be
something. An issue for child.
Now that would be something that child welfare services could immediately take action on, as well as law enforcement or code enforcement if they're occupying a structure that's uninhabitable.
Oh, there is water.
Okay.
So that was a real one.
Okay.
Brian,
Joe.
as far as neighborhood watch goes, do you think that it's in any way a good idea? I realize how the sheriff department is structured and, you know, you are where you are. But do you think it's a good idea, using Anderson Springs as an example, for them to give us a drive-through?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
You know, because when Sheriff Mitchell was in, that happened all the time. And I'm not going to complain about what's happening now, but what I'm looking forward is to a better solution. So if you were elected, would that be something that would happen? Not just in Anderson Springs, but using that as an example.
Of course, I don't want to turn this into a political forum, but there are things that can be done at the sheriff's level. Designating community service deputies is one of those things where we have a dedicated deputy to a certain community. I was a community service deputy in Clear Lake Oaks, and you kind of establish that relationship. You would know who that deputy was that was assigned to this area. And I know from firsthand experience, you take a personal interest in what goes on in your beat, because that's where you go every day. These problems that are happening, if you have a deputy sheriff that comes to work here every single day, they're going to respond to that because they don't want to show up the next day and say, well, the problem's still going on. If you got 4 or 5 deputies that shuffle in and out of here, they don't take that personal interest in your community. And it is a good solution. Yes, ma'am.
Again, maybe it's a political thing, but if you are elected, the response time with Cobb is horrible. My own personal experience, I work at Lockville, and I heard some noises outside. I called my boss, she called the sheriff. The sheriff's office called me and said, well, we can't get there for half an hour. Do you see anybody? Are you in danger? I said, I don't see anybody, but I definitely hear something. And thank God the male bartender that came down, my boss called him too, and he came down. And it just turned out it was an employee who came back to take the garbage out and didn't tell me that's what he was doing. But my question is, a half hour, what if somebody was out there with a gun? That's not acceptable. This was like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
Is there something that there will be a better response time?
There's a couple things that are going on. One, you live in a very rural area. That's one of the joys of living here. I know the officer here, if he probably called for backup in San Francisco, within 2 minutes, I imagine 10 officers would be on scene. I worked in the city, and I know how fast that happens. And it's a different climate and environment up here because we're so remote. We don't have to put up with everything they have to in San Francisco in exchange for that, but that's one of the prices that we pay. There are, I think, about 10 vacancies. Is that correct, Frank? There are about 10 vacancies?
No, there's 2.
2 deputy sheriff vacancies?
That's correct.
Huh.
2 funded positions that are not full right now.
2 funded. How many positions altogether?
There's just under 60. And we just hired 4 new deputies in the last 6 months.
Okay.
Those are just finishing up the training.
A lot of what happens is there are unfilled positions that exist at the sheriff's department. That's not something that I fault him for, and I don't think anybody will fault me for. There's a couple things that we do agree on. One of those things is that our pay and benefits for our deputies here is extremely low. The deputy sheriffs and all county employees haven't had raises in about 8 years. They've foregone cost of living increases. So that means they're making as much money as they are now than they were making 8 years ago. Cost of living's gone up, health insurance gone up, so subsequently they're taking home less money, and we're losing deputy sheriffs, we're losing probation officers as well, my department, to surrounding counties because they simply pay better. And that's a difficult thing to deal with when you don't have any control over the pay for those people. So I encourage the incumbent sheriff in his efforts in trying to advocate for pay raises for our deputies. They need it. We need to have qualified people. We need to be able to attract employees that are going to come and stay here for a long time. And ultimately, it benefits you in the community because there's enough staffing on the streets that's available to respond in a reasonable amount of time. 30 minutes is, I don't know exactly what was happening at the time. That might be, a perfectly reasonable explanation depending on what was happening elsewhere in the community.
It used to be 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's about how I said. I think 30 is good.
Good.
We're never there fast enough, right? When they want us. Yeah. Yes.
I just want to congratulate all of you people for being here. I'm so happy to see all these people together. I'm a resident here. I've been here just under 20 years. When we moved here, we came up here because we love it here, and it was a great community. And over the last 5 years, we've noticed a major change. I was a resident of Humboldt County before I moved to Lake County. And I saw what happened in Garberville, and it wasn't a good thing. And I don't want to see the same thing happen here in Cobb Mountain. I just feel like we should put out this whole thing. It's like take back the mountain. It's the community that's going to be able to do it. I haven't had a problem with the sheriff's office. We had several problems in our neighborhood, and I'm over in Adams Springs. We had a home invasion, and we had a really chronic offender that lived on our cul-de-sac, that we called the sheriff, there was response, and he felt okay about that, and that was great. It seems like when they get to the district attorney end, it gets thrown out, and the guy's back to living in the house the next day. I mean, he's, and this is a chronic offender for more than one dealing and manufacturing and everything. We, like I said, we lived the last 4 or 5 years now, it's just like hell. And finally, these people left. But we've seen the changes. We see it right now. We go into the community, we go to the store, we see all these out-of-state license plates, we see all these people that, who are they? Where are they from and why are they here? You know? And I mean, my daughter lives over by Boggs Lake and they walk out of the woods, you know, and it's like, it's frightening. My grandchildren are up here. It's just really changed. And I just want to say we need to keep together and keep this going and take back our mountain and don't allow us to become the next Garberville. It's just awesome. And it's the district attorney's office that I feel needs to be.
Yeah. Here, here.
And some of it they have jurisdiction protocol, and also we have a detective that's part of the district attorney's office that has a house right here, and he's an investigator, and he is very aware, and we are trying to take the village back and make it a village. My name is Inez. I'm second in command to Anne Marie, and I'm very happy to do this. Her and I came in, and we haven't had a response. We've had electronic messages. Dispatch hasn't heard us, and also I'm tired of mailboxes full. So, and when I volunteered for the Sheriff substation years ago, I came home to watch my own place. I was in Lockville. To make a long story short, if we didn't call, even if it was a raccoon, we wouldn't have gotten the response that we have gotten. So you have to keep calling no matter what. And we'll get more deputies on.
I actually have a question about that. I am starting to feel like I'm getting branded by dispatch as a pain for calling. And the response I get from dispatch, she argues with me.
Yeah.
I tell her someone's trying to break into cars and, you know, a car alarm's going off in the background, and she tells me, well, just because the alarm's going off, nobody tried to break in. You know, it's stupid stuff. So how do I approach it? I try to call dispatch when there's no gun or any danger involved, but am I saying the wrong thing?
No, there's nothing you're doing wrong. You're not distracting anything that you should be doing. It's, if there's an issue that needs to be taken care of on the other end of the phone line, that should fall in the sheriff's department as far as a customer service type of thing. You're doing exactly what we tell you to do.
Okay.
If you think there's a problem, you call law enforcement. In your neighborhood, what you've covered, that your best weapons against crime are your eyes, your ears, and your phone. Okay, you're doing exactly what you should be doing. If there's an issue at the other end of the phone, that's law enforcement's responsibility to handle that appropriately.
Now, is there a recourse? Can I call and complain somewhere? And how do I do that?
You could call Sheriff's Department Administration.
Pick up the phone and call? Okay.
Yes.
Then, yes.
I was just gonna say that same thing has happened to me. And the officer was trying to get a hold of, never got the message.
The good thing about when you call dispatch is those are recorded so they can hear exactly, when the supervisor goes to listen, they can hear exactly what was said and how it was said.
What worked for me was just calling 911 the second.
I would keep doing what you're doing. We tell you in law enforcement, call and report it. That's exactly what you're doing. Sir.
What we're talking about is basically misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies. So what percentage are we actually keeping misdemeanors and nonviolent felons housed out of the jail? I mean, aren't you only keeping really violent felons? And
You're kind of talking about criminal justice realignment?
yeah,
Sentencing practices?
basically, because if somebody gets caught for nonviolent felony or misdemeanor, they go in, they get maybe either they bail, they get arraigned. I mean, Sonoma County's sending their people out to Santa Rita. What percentage are we keeping here? Do we have the bed space for these people, or are we just citing them, or putting them out on probation, or what's happening with these people?
I don't have the stats. What I can tell you is that this realignment that came about, the things that you're kind of talking around have to do with non-violent, non-serious, and non-sex offenders, and that has to do with sentencing after conviction. In years past, we used to send those people to state prisons. Our state prisons got overcrowded, bursting at the seams, and the Supreme Court says that's cruel and unusual punishment. You have to reduce your state prison population. So now, instead of those types of offenders going to state prison, they're coming back to our county jail. And our county jail, like Sonoma counties, I imagine, and a lot of other counties in California, are absorbing that overpopulation program. So they are coming up with, we're trying to work with different ways of handling those offenders, whether it's put them on electronic monitoring, if somebody's a non-violent drug user, if we can put them in a program where they're reporting in every day to the probation department for testing, and leave those bed spaces available for the more violent people. Does that answer your question?
Sort of.
Sort of. What part did I miss? Well, I'm wondering how many people are actually keeping in custody. I don't know the numbers, perhaps the sheriff might be able to answer as far as the statistics go. I can tell you that's the purpose of realignment is to shift simply from putting everybody and locking everybody up behind doors to just the most serious and the most violent and the most dangerous people getting locked up and figuring out ways to solve what it is that causes people to commit crimes for the other ones. I'm not trying to sell it to you, I'm just telling you that's the way it is. Yes?
Well, our experience has been that there was one neighbor that had stalked people, broken into a house, many houses, and then probably burned his own house down. And every single time he's in jail for 1 to 2 days, maybe a week, they give it a bus ticket back to Cobb.
I don't know what the specifics are on that particular one.
Everyone knows this is in his own house.
Yeah, well, there's a good many people here that know about that, where he's taking baseball bats and beating in people's windows at 4 o'clock in the morning. He's stalked people. He's took bolt cutters and beat in a sliding glass door and entered a home when the people were there. And this character he's in the revolving door program because he's not hitting anybody over the head with the bolt cutters. He gets to do all the above.
He's probably part of what you're upset about with the DA's office.
Yeah.
I'd encourage you to invite the DA for your next meeting.
Yeah.
And find out why it is that's happening.
Chris White.
I know.
Yeah, but he's in right now. If he's in now, they had something with some teeth on this last time.
He can bring down a whole fort.
Yes.
But he didn't, and that's a good thing. But they did. The DA did step it up on that. I'm just going to say that they actually filed some charges and had some teeth.
That's how we got started, because I went to the DA's office and did a lot of research.
But I agree with what you're saying. But the DA, it took the DA to get something with some teeth, and he's still incarcerated right now.
And again, the DA is bound by some of these restrictions with realignment too. There's only so many places to put somebody at the jails. Population's over 300 at the jail. And kudos, hey, there's 300 people that probably need to be locked up. But
Did you shoot him?
He is.
But the DA's office is also restricted by the implementation of realignment in the sentencing practices. What else?
Yeah, okay, so it's pretty common knowledge that the jails are overpopulated, and everybody knows that. And like you just said, deputies are understaffed. So the reason we're here is so we can join together and come up with solutions to what we can do for our community. So I'd like to hear like suggestions. I have a suggestion. One thing I learned from this whole experience is that even though we live in this beautiful place that we consider safe, that we can't take our safety for granted, and we have to be responsible for ourselves and our belongings and our safety. I was careless. I left my car unlocked. I left it in my driveway. I have a perfectly good garage. So now I don't take it for granted at all that I step into the grocery store and never leave my car unlocked. And that's a lesson I've learned. But in addition, like I know a lot of people in the neighborhood put up alarms and have increased security, which is something that the more of us that do that, the less the victim or target is not as easy, so it will reduce. But another idea I have is I would like to get, these ladies have brought a map, and if any of you have been a victim of a crime, I would like to pinpoint where and when your crime was so that we can get an actual visualization on the map, like a centralized place and a time frame kind of, and that might help law enforcement too, or it might help us to have better awareness and join together with our...
Some other ideas, in addition to what you said, don't make your home attractive to the bad guys. If you have bushes that are growing up in front of your windows, cut the bushes back. If you, I know not everybody can afford a security camera system, but everyone can probably afford a motion sensor that turns on a light. They make motion sensors that activate your sprinklers to keep the deer away, and they work on people too. Just little things like that. And I think the biggest thing is to get out and knock on, don't wait until you get victimized. Anybody in here that hasn't been victimized, take this time now to introduce yourself to everybody that's around you, introduce yourself to your neighbors. Sometimes the neighbors are pretty far away on Cobb, but do what this young lady here did and knock on doors and meet, I think you described them as interesting people. Get to know your neighbors. Know who in your community is a law-abiding citizen and who may not be. And you'll find yourself gravitating towards the people that are interested in the betterment of the community. You'll find yourself establishing relationships to where if you have to go away for a day or two, you know who you can count on to keep an eye on your property, who can collect your mail. That's another big thing. And as you said, full mailboxes. If you go out of town, that's one thing that people look for, is mailboxes are full of stuff that shows you haven't been there for a long time.
Or Christmas wreaths that are still indoors and hanging.
Yeah.
Guilty.
That's not late, that's early.
I know that one of the frustrations we've had is that when we have a repeat offender, it seems like every time they pick him up, unless you have a photo of him breaking the law, there's nothing they can do. Is this normal?
No, and again, I can't make a blanket statement for everything that happens. It's law enforcement's job to investigate those things. Unfortunately, it's a big county, and sometimes it takes 45 minutes to get here. If it's not something that they're able to investigate, it might come down to that. We didn't see them doing it. However, if there is the opportunity to solve these crimes, we should call on our deputies to do that. If there's fingerprints to be lifted, lift fingerprints. If there's shoe prints in the ground to match up with shoe prints that this person's wearing, take a photo of those. We'll teach them how to do that. Basic crime scene evidence collection techniques. And not just I understand, I fully understand your frustration. I've heard it, I've had it happen to me, where somebody says, well, there's nothing we can do. Well, there's something you can do, there's something all of us can do. She proved it if you go out and knock on doors.
Yeah.
You go out and knock on doors and shake some bushes, sometimes you may not be, you have an idea, it sounds like who did it, but you may not be able to prove who did it, but they're probably not going to victimize her again, and she got her property back.
And it was all thanks to my neighbors, the help that I got from everybody.
Yeah, I wish I could stand up here and say law enforcement solves every crime we come across. Unfortunately, we don't. And
So I
I hope we never get the impression that we don't
Quick one
care.
thing, taking back our neighbor, taking back our mountain, I want to know if you have any ideas.
Yes.
Years ago, well, I've had 3 burglaries and 1 home invasion. Years ago, on one of my burglaries, I had etched my husband's driver's license on your home. So at one point, they did catch the fence, and the fence wheeled on the burglars.
Good.
So we got back our property, other than our alcohol, which they enjoyed. But they did have to pay restitution. So I brought my etching tool, if anybody wants to borrow it too.
Oh, and I have one too.
Etching tool or even a Sharpie. We had a case about 2 weeks ago where our probation officers went and did a probation compliance check on one of our guys who we thought was up to no good and found a bunch of tools. And turns out he had stolen a bunch of power tools from the city of Clear Lake and they didn't even know it yet. They found another lady had a bunch of tools over there. She says, anything that's a Makita tool is mine. I said, well, how do you know? And she says, well, on the battery packs, I wrote my name. They pulled the battery packs out, and her name was on there. So exactly, yeah. Another good crime prevention. It's not necessarily a crime prevention tip, but it'll give law enforcement the tools that we need to be able to solve those crimes. Mark your property, take note of serial numbers. I'm the biggest offender. I got, if I get a camera or something, I'll be the first one to tell people, hey, get your serial number. I'm the last one to do it. But do those things. With digital cameras or your phones, a simple snapshot of that, you keep it on your cell phone or load it to your computer. It's a whole lot easier than writing it down and keeping it in a file. So then not only do you have a picture of what the serial number is, a picture of the actual item itself. Anybody ever tried to describe a wedding ring to somebody without showing them a picture? Take a picture of your jewelry. If somebody steals your jewelry or if it ends up in a pawn shop, it's a lot easier to say, I have an 8 carat, because cops don't know how many carats are. Here's a picture of it. If you see this at the pawn shop, that's mine and I want it back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, right now, for the people here, Costco's probably got the best deal in the market right now. It's called QC. It's 4 cameras. I think it's, don't quote me, $2.99, and it's got a lot of, not gigabytes, and there's another called terabytes.
Correct.
That means, it's going to, you can leave for a couple weeks, and it's going to continuously go instead of 24 hours, and you have nothing. If someone breaks in, you're gone. I'd look it up. It's good till the end of this month, and I'm sure a lot of us could get together. You're seeing there's single women, a couple of guys might donate some time to install it. The other system's $4.99 with 8 cameras, 4 inside and 4 outside.
Are they wireless?
There's no such thing. You still have to run power to the cameras, but they are good up to 100 feet, and they're pretty crystal.
Don't buy Night Owl. Learn from experience. Terrible playback.
Again, I'll say this again, these poor cops have, and sheriffs have a lot of going on up here. I don't believe in our court system no more. I think the court needs to let the police officers be police officers again. And stop looking for guys driving around again, I'll say it, with cell phones. When they get in a wreck, their insurance company's going to run a check on them, see if they're on the phone. So why are you tying up all these police officers and sheriffs? It's Bean County. We can afford to have a sheriff up here 24/7, the way I look at it. And we need it now. The way I've handled this, like I said last time, if they don't want to listen to us here, all of us go down to the courthouse.
Here, here.
And we'll bring the camera people in and explain why our system's not working. But it's not the law enforcement. That's all I have to say.
We'll take care of our component of it.
Right, and good old boy network. Dealt with it for years.
I don't know what the current practice is as far as cell phone enforcement. I don't know that our deputies are out there looking for
Well, I'm
cell
just
phones.
saying,
I know the highway
it's
patrol does.
big revenue.
Yeah.
And you're tying up good men for nothing. They do it all over. CHP, all of them. Bean counters, get rid of them.
Okay. All right. Yes.
I got 4 cameras on Amazon.com for $279. So that's, that's if you don't have a Costco card, that's something you can deliver right to your door.
Some of the systems, I think, have the ability to, you can remotely view what's going on in your
Yeah, you
home.
can put it right on your
On
cell phone.
your cell phone. So.
Yeah, I have it on my cell phone.
Good plan, but like I said, not everybody can afford that, afford to shell out a couple $100. But the motion sensor lights, they make false cameras too. The bad guys walking by, if they're paying attention, they're looking to see who has cameras. You can buy little fake cameras to put up there if you can't afford the actual system, and that might be a deterrent for them also. So anyone else? Signs. You mentioned signs up here. Yeah, put a sign up that says my home is under video surveillance, and that might be enough just to steer them. You're going to push them somewhere else. They might commit a crime, but hopefully you won't be the victim. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question concerning grow houses. Are there any obvious things that you could spot, like here the generator run, or if somebody's tapped in illegally to the power, or?
Exactly those types of things. Loud humming sounds, odd traffic at different hours of the night. There's visqueen or black stuff up over the windows so you can't see anybody come in. If somebody comes up and visits maybe once every couple of weeks or couple of days or once a month. Odd traffic at certain times of the year, every 3 or 4 months. All of a sudden there's a whole bunch of traffic in or out. Those are all indicators that don't necessarily mean something's going on, but those are indicators that law enforcement look for when trying to spot what grow houses are. I don't know if you guys have the smart meters or the old dial meters on some of the homes here, but anytime we've gone to a house where we suspect there's a grow inside and there is a grow inside, those meters are spinning like tops. They're going.
Don't confuse that with someone like me that welding all the time either. Another thing you always gotta look for, you can always hear their fans on. That's one that's always big. They gotta move air in and out somehow.
Yeah.
And it gets warm up here. They gotta pump air. Look for excessive AC units. How many AC units do you guys need to put on a house? There's other things that are there that I'm more out of for is always. Curtains are always closed.
Yeah.
The big fear for me is a fire. We gotta, this would be a torch situation up here later on.
The big problem with fires nowadays, you hear about these honey oil labs. Have you heard butane and honey oil? They use honey oil basically to extract hash out of the plants. They evaporate the butane out of there and leaves the residue behind, and that's where the big money is. And those vapors go up in the air, and somebody has static electricity because they touch something, or thermostat kicks over, there's any kind of spark in there, and those are causing these big explosions and these big fires in the communities.
That's a real concern.
It's a very big concern everywhere they happen. The gentleman back there has probably removed more illegal marijuana during the course of his career than anybody you will ever meet in your life. Did I miss anything, Steve, about grow houses?
No, you covered it pretty good. You may not even smell it.
Yeah.
Because there's carbon filters inside the house. But the humming, the fans, nobody shows up. You show up for 15 minutes every 3 days or something like that. Those are all indicators.
What they're doing is tending to their crop when they show. Everything's set up on timers here. The lights go on for a certain amount of time. They go off for a certain amount of time, but they have to refill the fertilizer, make sure that there's enough water and whatnot, and that's why you're seeing that odd traffic. Sir?
Yeah, I have a heard from a number of my neighbors that there's several very large grows right around my neighborhood, which I didn't know about, and I haven't really gone to look. But I live right next door to a guy for 5 years who's been a great guy and regular guy, just got busted with 800 plants. 600 under the house, 150 in the shed, and nobody knew. I'm right there, I didn't smell anything. And he's not like leaving, there's no traffic, there's no way to tell whatsoever that what he was doing.
Yeah.
And it was a big shock to all of us. And now I've got a vacant house next to me that may end up on the market and changing everything in the neighborhood.
But doesn't the PG&E and the water company know?
The water company may care. PG&E is all about making money.
But they know.
They know. Yeah, they're all about making money. Yeah, well, but PG&E is not in the business of enforcing crimes. They're in the business of making money by providing power. You have something?
Yes, last year, and being a mandated reporter, and I have been in this county for 28 years, my husband's a school teacher, I saw something totally unusual on Bar Rock Road, and you know how many times we traveled that road. I called code, they came right out, it was gone. It was trashed, it looked unusual, and it was sort of in the forest, vacant lot area, and they got on it and it was gone, and I got a wonderful call back, thank you, and it was done. And that's what we want. We want to hear back if we can, if not, we don't really know until we see it again.
Report it, like I told Amory, you got to report those things.
And it was done.
Commenting on that house, like he was speaking of a person who kept a really quiet, nice guy, and it was really one of the nicest houses, most peaceful houses on my street, on Ponderosa. And, you know, whatever happened, that guy's business, like, he keeps to himself, he doesn't bring in, you know, like trash to the neighborhood, or really seem like it's, you know, crime. So it doesn't really seem to be like a big concern to me as far as the neighborhood compared to some of the other things that are going on.
That's one of
You
the
know,
things.
if the house is having like weird people coming and going, and then you've got trash all around, then yeah, that's a concern. But that guy had a nice house, whatever he did in the privacy of his own home, doesn't concern me.
Yeah, when it's that large a grow, and somebody finds out about it, and there's guns involved, which there were, then, you know, you're talking about, it only takes one speed freak who decides he wants to go in and get it.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
When you make a bust, and let's say there's $25,000, I don't care about the guns, I care less. Where does that money go, and how is it distributed?
I'm assuming that you're talking about $25,000 as a result of criminal activity.
From drug sales.
So it's taken under asset seizure.
And see, this is what I don't understand. We're lacking, I think Frank said there's 2 openings for sheriff. Well, one can go up here for 24/7, I guess, 12-hour shift. But why don't they, when they make this bust of 25,000, 40,000, why don't they set up a fund for the sheriff department where they get bonus checks every 4 months? Or why can't they do that?
We can't do that. I understand. I'm not an expert on asset forfeiture. I can tell you what I understand about it and why we can't do what you're proposing. The money does get divvied up amongst the law enforcement agencies that participate in the asset forfeiture program. It's seized under a civil proceeding where basically the government sues you because they believe...
There's the problem right there.
Well, that's what you have to do. We can't just have the cops run around taking your money and putting it in their pocket and saying, we got a bonus check.
That's why
you think you're angry now if that were to happen. It can't be used for bonuses because we can't incentivize law enforcement. The idea of law enforcement is that we maintain law and order, we serve our community. If you were to have a system where we gave bonuses for enforcing these types of crimes, but there's no bonus for solving a burglary.
Why can't you hire more officers on that money then?
That happens. That money is used. It comes back into law enforcement efforts. So to put it happens already. That money comes back to law enforcement agencies, divvied up amongst the law enforcement agencies. We can't get bonuses for it though. Yes.
The issue that I have about grow houses in the neighborhood is that our neighborhood is not zone for agriculture. And if you have more than a couple of plants, you sure as hell are doing agriculture. And you can damn well bet that if I put 10 head of cattle in my front yard, they would be on me, the agencies of whoever, within hours. But nobody cares about the grow, I guess. I don't know. The PG&E knows, the water company, everybody knows. But that's flat out agriculture. And that's not what the neighborhood's zoned for. Go and grow it out there with ignorance.
We had a drone in our neighborhood yesterday.
Really?
Well, it circled our house for a long time, down into the canyon right behind Run Meadow. And it was interesting, and I was like, yeah, I'm happy if there's drones above there looking for hot drones. Hey, do you know anything about it?
I'm not aware of any drone programs right
I'm
now.
not either. Maybe.
So, and it could be. It might be some secret.
Maybe it was a radio control.
I'm not aware of anything like that.
There's a woman in the back with a question.
Yes.
Generally speaking,
They're saying
you
there was
were
a
a comment on the prevalence of growers in the Cobb area compared to the rest of the county.
This is not a problem that is unique to Cobb. I can tell you that. It's not the indoor grows, the outdoor grows. It's not a problem that's unique to Cobb. It's all over Lake County. It's in the national forest, public lands. It's in neighborhoods, in the cities, inside homes, outside homes. It is widespread. We have.
Would you say if there's more or less prevalence in the Cobb areas as opposed to the rest of the county?
I don't know that I can comment on.
Do we really need to be concerned here in the Cobb area about roads, or is it, relatively not a big problem?
If you're concerned about it, it's a problem. Well, I'll say, I don't know as far as there's too many factors there. The population density. I know if you go on Google Earth and look around the county, you'll see marijuana growing all over this county. It is everywhere. We have the perfect environment for growing, and we're in a state that is probably on its way to relaxing all of the marijuana laws here in the not very distant future. So it's going to be an issue that we're going to be facing for years and years to come.
One more thing then.
Sure.
How do you feel about legalizing marijuana? Because people say, oh, well, if we legalize it, then all the big bad guys will go away, blah, blah, blah. Which I just don't buy that, because they'll just figure out how to sell it to somebody else, right?
I think that it's going to be legalized. I think in order to take the problems out of it, it needs to be legalized nationwide. Because it's not marijuana that's the problem, it's the profit that's attached to it.
Right.
People aren't robbing other people because they want their marijuana, they want the money that they're going to get out of it. If it's legalized nationwide, you take the profitability out of it, it'll become like every other crop, I think. Yeah, what I do see as a side effect of that we're going to see is that the drug cartels and the people who deal drugs for a living are not simply going to fold their cards in and say, well, we're done the drug dealing business because marijuana is legal. We're going to see a spike and an increase in other types of crimes. I think we're going to have a spike in heroin, cocaine. I think methamphetamine is going to start rearing its ugly head. They're going to look for drugs that cause addiction. They want to get their hooks into people that cause addiction and make a lot of money. And so I think we're going to see the unexpected and unwanted consequence of legalization is there's going to be a spike in those types of drugs. Anyone else? Thank you very much. Like I say, this is by far, by hands down, the best neighborhood watch meeting I have been to in over 20 years. You guys are a good group of people here, very involved, very interested, and keep this up. Keep it up. Get out, know your neighbors, go out, knock on doors, introduce yourself to somebody here. You probably see each other, at the store, or at the post office, or walking around the neighborhoods. Take some time to get to know your neighbors and make some friends. And yes, ma'am.
I know you're not trying to be political today, but do you have signs with you today?
I just wanted this, for me, to be a neighborhood watch meeting.
Speaking of signs,
Thank you.
I called Caltrans and there isn't a budget for the metal signs, which I don't care if they go up or not, I really don't at this point. You know, the warning neighborhood watch, they have it in Loch Lomond, but Loch Lomond never really had a registered neighborhood watch like we have here. So I want you all to know that.
Okay, and don't forget to make your contribution for the ink fund, the ink and paper fund.
This one?
I'll make your contribution. And again, one more, yes, sir.
Just one thing, I had an idea about how we could get more police up here, more county sheriffs. Maybe once a week or so, we could host a county sheriff for dinner. If we invite the county sheriff for dinner.
Hey, whoever's.
That's good. I'll have it, but I want you to.
Hey, neighborhood barbecues. Lakeport has a national, they participate in the National Night Out program. They don't have a monopoly on that. You can have a National Night Out program, I think it occurs in August, where basically it's a big block party where everybody comes out and interacts. You'll have representatives from law enforcement, your fire districts can come out and put something on. If there's anybody in the community that has a bounce house business, and get something going for the kids to come out and have fun. And again, that's a good time to do this type of thing outside in a more relaxed environment.
We used to have events here.
Yeah, these are.
Being that this place was broken into and we couldn't get a warrant, we would like to support Phil, and he's not that well right now.
Yeah, those are all things that build community, and when you have a strong community, you'll see a reduction in crime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Frank Rivera. I'm the sheriff. It's Lieutenant Steve Brooks, who's here with me. Just a point of clarification, we were in fact invited. I don't know how we didn't end up in the agenda, but we didn't just show up here. I wanted to, I took some time in preparation for this meeting to put together a list of crimes and calls from our CAD, computer-aided dispatch system, from January 1st through May 30th, as of yesterday. And I wanted to start by sharing some of those with you, and then we'll talk about some of your concerns, and then Steve, who has taken over Pat Tortoriki, the undersheriff's job. Pat Tortoriki has helped several neighborhood watch programs in the county to succeed, and Steve's going to be handling that. For now, he has cards here. He'd be happy to give you cards, and any help that we can give you, we're there for you. I want to start by telling you that we had 568 calls for service since January 1st, since yesterday in Cobb. Now, Cobb is 7 Boy. That's the identifier for this district. And those calls for service include everything that's in our CAD that's been communicated to our dispatch through the deputies or through a phone call from someone, a resident. Of those calls, there was one number that really alarmed me as I started to study this, which was the 911 hang-ups. And I think this is something that we can all really do to help alleviate some of the pressure, because we don't have a whole lot of people. And I want you to understand, the amount of deputies that are funded is set by the Board of Supervisors. It's not set by the sheriff. So I have to work within our means and have people in the right place at the right time. Sometimes we're out of position. And we also have to set response to calls by priority. If there's somebody who's been shot, or there's a home invasion robbery or something like that, there may be a delay coming out to a lesser crime. And I'm not saying that that crime is lesser just because it's a broken window or a barking dog in the middle of the night. It's just a matter, our priorities run parallel like this, and then we have to choose out of them when we're dispatching. So I hope that everybody here understands that and keeps that in mind. If there's a half-hour delay, that's a long time if you're waiting for an officer or a deputy to show up. But in fact, since we've opened our Middletown substation, the response times have dramatically decreased. And that's true in Clear Lake Oaks, where it used to take us 45 minutes to get down to Spring Valley. We were dispatched for this area out of the, right by Walmart, the courthouse in Clear Lake. And that was a long run, usually coming up Seagull Springs, or, you know, even on an emergency, it would take 30, 40 minutes. So now if the deputy's out writing a report and they're out of service, at least they're close by. It's about 10, 15 minutes to get up here. I live in Middletown, and even driving the speed limit, it doesn't take that long to get up here. But the 139 out of 568 calls for service for 911 hang-ups, that's a lot. That means every time we get a 911 hang-up, a deputy responds out there, goes, does a walk around the house, make sure it hasn't been broken into, et cetera, et cetera. What you can do to help is, at least for the exterior of your house, the phone company, and these are all landline calls, by the way, this does not include any cell phone. The phone company will come out and check your system. These are old systems around here, a lot of them, and also when it rains, sometimes the boxes aren't totally closed, they get wet. So we end up with a 911 hang-up or static on the line or something like that. Well, that's a call for service. That's taking a deputy out of service, who might even take him out of position in the event that you have an actual emergency. So that's something that we as a community can do to improve that situation immediately, because that's a lot of calls. There were, many of these were civil calls, civil matters, either neighbor-neighbor disputes, or we were serving civil process or handling some other civil type matter. We had 35 of these were traffic stops. There was one DUI involved, in one that was referred to CHP, and security checks. A security check is when an officer or deputy stops at a business or stops somewhere and they actually get out. That's not their presence like driving and doing routine patrol. And my model has always been, you don't know what's abnormal until you know what's normal. And in order to know what's normal, you have to patrol. So I always advocate for people to get out on the road and spend as little time as possible in the substation, as much time as possible in the community. As far as the burglaries are concerned, this about, I guess in 3 weeks ago, I ran into some friends of mine that live up here in Cobb, and they said, oh, there's been this huge rash of burglaries, and I monitor, my dispatch sends me every morning information concerning the watch commander log, which is everything that happened in the county in the last 24 hours. But there's also a burglary report that I get, and I hadn't seen that. So I went and checked, and then I printed this up to yesterday, or actually I'm sorry, up to Friday. But we've had here in Cobb, including Loch Lomond, and this is a big area here geographically, the Seven Boyd area. I mean, it includes other areas. I can't break it down any further because our system, our computer system won't allow me to do that. We had a total of 11 burglaries from January 1st through the 30th of this month. And of those 11 burglaries, 8 of them were reported prior to March 15th. Now realize that we have a lot of people that live around here and in the county in general, all over the county, that in fact are not full-time residents. They have places somewhere else. So many of these burglaries I'm attributing to somebody just coming here to visit their home, and they have been broken into sometime in a very wide period of time. It could be months. And that's really difficult to investigate. And that's where an operation like Neighborhood Watch really comes into fruition and really shines. Because you know those homes. You know the homes where the people are not home there or not living there year-round. And if you take ownership of your area, even if it's just your block, and you see something abnormal, please call us. And I heard one lady say that the dispatch was rude. That is not acceptable. I have a new dispatch manager as of about a year. Dispatch was a real problem for me for a long time. I realized I have to wear a lot of different hats, just like Lieutenant Brooks. He's the chief of our detectives. He's also my public information officer. He does a lot of different things for the sheriff's office, and now he's taken over the Neighborhood Watch. But there's no excuse for dispatch to be rude to you, and there's no excuse for you to have to feel like you're bothering them or that you shouldn't call them. Call. If you think something's going on, you're the people that know this area. You're the people that know what's normal. If there's something abnormal, just call. It doesn't bother us. And if you feel at all that you have any problems with that call, you can contact me. You can contact Kelly Green. She's the head of dispatch. She has done a fantastic job of turning dispatch around for us, and they really do work for you. And I'm not making any excuses for them, but you talk about a stressful job. You know, sometimes they have fire on one line, they have 911 on another line, and they got a deputy asking to run a plate over the air. And you might catch somebody, because we're all human, having a bad day, but realize that they are doing a really good job. We've been monitoring that and been working with Kelly, and they're doing just really fantastic work. All in all, in looking at these, there's 12 sheets here, 568 calls. And looking at this, this is a very safe community. If you look at there was one violent incident I can think of, was only a couple of weeks ago. These two individuals stuck a gun in a guy's chest and then beat him up. We were here within... Allegedly.
It wasn't a gun.
Okay. Well, we were here, that was the gist of the call. We were here within moments. Our deputies located the two individuals. They went to jail. But all in all, it's the efforts of you folks combined with the efforts of the sheriff's office that has really maintained a quite safe community here by any comparison. I mean, if you look around, inside Lake County, outside Lake County, you're really doing well, and my hat's off to all of you. I think you should feel proud about that. You've taken stock in your community, and you've done and continue to do the right thing. When you talk about issues like squatters and things like that, there are a lot of those type of problems in these communities. There's a lot of foreclosures. The banks, honestly, they don't care, and they have to go through a foreclosure, or an eviction process, because you can't just evict somebody. Believe it or not, somebody can come into a house and just squat, and guess what? They got tenants' rights. They don't have to pay dime one. So we can't just go in there and yank them out, because we'd be civilly liable, and the owners of the house, like if you have a tenant who's keeping a house, or you're renting a house to a tenant, and you just boot them out without the proper paperwork, you're civilly liable for that. And it's hard medicine to swallow. I've been to many calls where somebody says, hey, they're not paying rent, they're destroying the house, or doing this, or doing that, but they're tenants. And people get upset. But what I ask people to understand, and I think the